Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this question and answer session. My name is Professor Richard Thelwell, and I'm the head of School for Sport, Health and Exercise Science. And in a couple of minutes or so, I'll start a very short presentation on to what life as a student within our school might look like at Portsmouth. And then we'll have an opportunity for a variety of questions and answers. So, as I said, we'll just give it a couple of minutes to let anyone else who's trying to join, and then we'll commence. Okay, so we'll make a start. Hopefully everyone who was going to join has now had a chance to join. So for those of you who didn't hear my very initial introduction, my name is Professor Richard Thelwell, and I'm the head of School for Sport, Health and Exercise Science. And I welcome you to this question and answer session in some very uncertain times. And hopefully in the next few minutes, I'll be able to give you a bit of an overview to the school and to the types of courses that we run, what it's like to be a student within our school. And then we'll have an opportunity for some question and answers that might emerge as a result from this particular session. So obviously this particular time finds you at a very uncertain time for many reasons. Not only have we got the COVID pandemic, we've also got the scenario where you guys might be thinking, which university might you like to go to? There'll be some of you who might be looking at university for this coming autumn. There might be others who are already starting to look at university positions for the year after next. So there's lots of things that need to go into that decision-making pot. And of course, there'll be things such as the courses, there'll be the location, there'll be the proximity to home. There might well be some financial issues. There might be employment-related issues that you might wish to consider prior to where it is you want to go to university. And of course, there are so many things that you need to then look at to be able to make that decision. So I'm sure that many of you have probably looked at league tables. There are so many of them, and unfortunately, each league table says very different things. So my best advice would be to try to look for consistency. And as a school, the School of Sport, Health and Exercise Science at Portsmouth is very well positioned across all league tables. We find ourselves in the top 10%, and we've managed to do that as a result of a whole variety of activities that students engage in throughout their studies. When looking at universities, you obviously also want to think about the proximity to other support that's going to be in place. At Portsmouth, our school is situated right at the heart of the university campus. We're directly opposite the student union. We're right next to the library. We're 200 yards from what will be the brand new sports facility that is currently being built. And we're right next door to student support and student services. So again, those are types of things that you might wish to consider. Now, of course, the biggest thing that you're going to think about will be the course. So at Portsmouth, we have 4 main undergraduate courses. And although there's lots of information that's available online for you, there are probably 2 things that I think are really important for you to bear in mind when looking around institutions. The first one is to whether or not the course has any professional endorsement or professional recognition, professional accreditation, because that might have some influence on where you wish to go in the future. And the second thing is, what will you exactly study on that course? Because there, of course, will be a requirement for the staffing base to be quite expansive if there are a number of areas that are being covered. So if I take the first course, sport and exercise science. Now, typically here we will have 150 to 170 new students per year. And it's highly known that sport and exercise science will have elements of psychology, of physiology, of biomechanics, of human movement, etc. But my challenge to you when looking around universities is the extent to which each of those areas are covered. For example, I'm a psychologist, and I would want to know, if I was looking at a university course, that there'd be areas of cognitive, social, developmental, sport, physical activity, mental health, applied, motor control, skill acquisition, because they're all things that sport and exercise scientists would need to know about. Now, if all of those things are being covered, you've got really good breadth in your content, you've got good depth in terms of the different areas of that domain. And of course, that means that there's going to have to be a whole variety of staff who are able to deliver and also engage you in your studies. And the same thing would be said for biomechanics, for human movement, for physiology. There are many different areas within each. So that's my first challenge to you. No, don't just accept the fact that you're going to look at biomechanics. There might be biomechanics of elderly populations. It might be more rehabilitation, strength conditioning. And they're all the things that we do cover at Portsmouth. The other thing is that the sport and exercise science course is professionally endorsed by the British Association of Sport and Exercise Science. The second course is sports management and development, and we normally have around about 50 to 60 new students on that course per year. There's no real endorsement for these types of courses in the UK at the moment, but that doesn't mean to say that we're not trying to ensure that the course isn't appropriate for the employment market. In fact, many of our students on this course seek very, very good graduate employment as soon as their studies come to a close. Now, the sports management and development program is very, very different in terms of its content. It's not sport and exercise science, and our students here will look at sports policy, sports intervention, sports business, sports marketing, maybe things such as enterprise, entrepreneurship. They might look at strategy management, event management, facility management, all the way through to maybe sport for development. So there's a huge societal aspect here. And as I said, many students here might end up working as far as going into sports law, sports marketing, all the way through to working in maybe local government in terms of sports policy and the finances of sport development, physical activity, well-being, etc., which of course is a huge agenda within the UK at the moment. The third course, which has professional endorsement from REPS, who are the Register of Exercise Professionals, is the Exercise and Fitness Management Programme. This one has around 30 to 40 students per year, and you could argue it's a bit of an amalgamation between the sport and exercise science and also the sports management and development course. It's when you get to the final year, you have the opportunity to work out whether you'd rather go down more of the kind of vocational, physical activity related areas, or whether you want to go more towards the management and policy related. So this is very much a course which is designed with the vocational application of exercise and health within the fitness industry. And we have many students who progress throughout this course and also take up the benefit of having additional professional qualifications throughout the course to then graduate and move into the health related sector. So we've had numerous students who have actually started up their own companies whilst a student with us, and they've utilised the professional qualifications, utilised their degree to then go on and actually have very successful business activities on graduation. Now, the final course that we have at undergraduate level is sport and exercise psychology. And this one attracts between 40 to 50 students per year as a new intake. And this one is professionally accredited by the British the British Psychological Society. And this particular organisation enables you to then follow a career in psychology in the full knowledge that you can evidence that you've covered appropriate psychology knowledge throughout your course. The other beauty of this course is that it's part delivered with the very successful Department of Psychology that we have within our Faculty of Science and Health at Portsmouth. So it tends to be at level 5, which is year 2, where some of your content will be delivered by some of the colleagues that we work with very closely in psychology. So they're the 4 undergraduate courses, and one of the key things that's worth bearing in mind, and actually one of the questions that just popped up as a result of some of this discussion in relation to placements. Now, all of our courses have an opportunity for what we call a sandwich course after level 5 or year 2. So all courses provide students an opportunity to take that sandwich year, and that might be either a placement, a work placement, or it could be a study abroad. And we have numerous organisations with whom we're operating with internationally for those study abroad. For example, we currently have students at Western Ontario in Canada, Brock University in Canada. We've just started an arrangement with Edith Cowan University in Western Australia, Manipal Institute, which is in India, amongst others. And we have a range of other institutions within Australasia, New Zealand and Australia areas, which are at the final stage of negotiation. Now, of course, we don't know quite what the situation is going to be for international travel, but we continually review the international study abroad opportunities for students. The placement activities, however, don't have to be international. They can be home and abroad. And not all students wish to actually do it as a year long. So therefore, we have a range of other placement opportunities within our curriculum where students predominantly at level 6 can do something, which is 3rd year, can do something called professional development. So this is effectively where you can do work-related activity, which is related to the course, and it is also at an appropriate level 6, but you also get academic credit for it. And this is something that has become particularly beneficial for a number of students because they can also combine it with their research projects, which they would then typically do in the final year of their study. So in answer to the question that's come forward, yes, lots and lots of placement opportunities. We have a placement office within our faculty to ensure that all of the procedures, policies, practices are followed. And it's something that employers are seeing as being incredibly beneficial now in terms of recruitment and in terms of ongoing employment of our students. So just coming to a close on what I'm going to talk about, and the final thing I'm just going to say is in relation to the variety of careers that our students go into. It can be really broad church approach. We have some who, as I mentioned earlier, who might go into government, some people who might go into sports law, some sports practice, some will start their own companies, some might go into postgraduate courses. A number of them will go into, for example, military, and that brings up a question that has just popped up onto the screen here as well. Now, in terms of the connections with the military, in response to this particular question, we do have a number of individuals from Royal Navy who are students within our school. In terms of the links that we have with them, the links are predominantly in relation to the use of the facilities which are surrounding our campus. And so that's more at an institutional level as opposed to direct links between the school and the Royal Navy or the military United Services as a whole. Other professions that people might go into: teaching, sports science, physiotherapy. People will go into a whole variety. And the reason for that is often because the types of assessments that you'd cover will be very wide ranging. And the skills that you develop will enable you to go into a whole variety of employment sectors. The assessments that we have within the school are not just exams and essays. They are laboratory reports. They might be presentations either as individuals or as groups. They might be analysis of data, client reports. So it's a very wide-ranging group of assessments that you'd be required to complete. And hopefully that enables us to then work with students to ensure that their skills are not only being developed, but also being really stretched in terms of making them graduate ready. So in terms of my short presentation, that kind of brings the majority of things to a close, other than to say that one of the key things that we do really pride ourselves on is the ongoing development of career, of enterprise related activity for the students. And we actually put aside a set fund where we have annual competitions for our students to apply to what we call the Career Development Prize, which is where we have first prize of £500 for students to effectively write 500 words to say why we should give them the £500 to develop their employment skills. They then make the application, they're then shortlisted, and if they're successful, they receive some financial support. This year, we've had a number of students who have won money to develop a range of enterprise activities. We keep in touch with our alumni. We have regular alumni conferences for promoting career opportunities, and we're literally in the throes now of looking at the development of further mentoring schemes, not only within our course where we might have level 5s mentoring level 4s, but we also have a variety of activities where the students will also have an opportunity to be mentored by people external to the university. So lots of different things coming forward in terms of that. Okay, so that brings me to a close on my short presentation. I'm just going to come across to some of the questions that are coming forward. So one of the questions here says, do the courses link with the football club at all? Well, some of you might be aware that at present, the university is the main sponsor of Portsmouth Football Club, and this is for a whole variety of reasons. And one of the key things that it's seen is that there are, well, hundreds of placement activities that are going on within the football club, not just in our school, but across the whole university. In terms of our school, we have a number of students who are working with the academy. So there's a lot of strength conditioning related work. There is a lot of sports marketing. There's a lot of local community work that's taking place with the football club. We have a number of staff who are also highly involved with the professional squad, and students are able to get further opportunities with that. Taking that forward, one of the new areas of the curriculum that we're introducing next year, and this is starting at level 5, which is year 2, is in regard to performance analysis. And so that will be an excellent opportunity for a whole variety of placements for our students, not just with the football club, but with a whole variety of other professional organisations with whom we operate. So that's a really good question. Yes, we have lots of contacts with the football club, but I wouldn't just look at Portsmouth Football Club as being the one and only. We work with a whole variety of sporting organisations, professional bodies, nationally, regionally, internationally, across a whole variety of sports and other disciplines who might utilise the skills that you have from sport and exercise science related subjects. The next question, when are the additional sports facilities available and when will the building be finished? Well, if I just give you an insight, so the sports facility is an 8-lane swimming pool. It's an 8-court hall, and the gym is approximately 175 to 200 fitness stations. And the idea is that it will be completed by April 2021. So by the time that the academic year 21-22 commences, that facility should be up and running. Now, that facility is literally 200 metres from our doorstep, which is where the School of Sport, Health and Exercise Science is based. And as it currently stands, the other half of our building is half of sport and recreation. So the other side of the wall from our building, we have a sports hall, we have dance studios, and just across the road is the other half of sport and recreation, which again is another sports hall and all of the fitness suite activities. The external sports facilities are at a place called Langston, which is about 2.5 miles from the main university campus, but there's a bus that takes students directly, literally from outside our door in our building right through to Langston, and so that's free of charge for students. But we do, as I mentioned earlier, have access to the United Services facilities for limited periods of time. In terms of the sports that are available, well, if you think of a sport, there's a university team in it, and the university student union, or the athletic union, is very successful, and there are multiple teams across many different sports. So you would not be hard pressed to find a team to engage with. The next question that's just popped up is, how many hours of lectures are there weekly? Well, I have to confess that next year we haven't got a clue what's going on, really, have we? Because of the COVID situation, there are so many uncertainties. So what I think is the best thing to do there is to answer as though nothing would have changed. So ordinarily at level 4, you would probably have in the region of 18 hours contact a week, 16 to 18 hours contact a week. And that will change on a weekly basis, because each area of study will have probably 1, possibly 2 lectures per week. And that might then be supplemented by a workshop, a seminar, a practical, depending upon what type of subject it's going to be. So some laboratories, for example, might be 2-3 hours in duration, but that might only happen every other week. So when I say 16 to 18 hours per week contact, that can be variable depending upon what course you're on, what modules you're studying, and also what week that you're going to be in. So there is going to be some variability within that. I think the beauty of the situation that we're in at the moment, it may well be that some of our lectures actually start to move online more, and that enables students to, rather than be tied to a particular timetable, to be able to download material when they see it as being more appropriate. And so then our contact might end up being more from the small group type sessions, where there'd be practicals, there'd be seminars, there'd be more of the small group face-to-face activities. And a lot of students ask the question about how many hours of lectures there are per week, because they're concerned about work opportunities and being able to structure employment around their studies. So at the moment it's a bit of an unknown, but if I were to go on what would normally happen, there'd be 16 to 18 hours per week in the first year. That might then be pretty consistent into the second year, and it's in the third year which is where you might see a slight decline in that, because you'll be doing your final year research project. And so all that means is that you won't have as much face-to-face, but you'll have a huge amount of dedicated time to collect your data, to be able to meet with your supervisors, to be able to meet with your research teams, to be able to conduct that work that's taking place. So when we talk about contact or lectures, it's probably best to look at it in terms of contact hours in its entirety, because that will come across as lectures, practicals, seminars, tutorials, small group sessions, study groups, etc. So there's lots of different things that are going to take place there. So I hope that's answered the question there on the number of hours. In terms of the study books for the first year, do you need to get any? Well, I would never say no, because it's always good to evidence that you're invested and you're interested in your subject area. But the reality is the vast majority of texts now are online, and the library resource that we have at Portsmouth is phenomenal. So if you're looking at particular textbooks, we will have sufficient available for you, because we operate something called Moodle, which is an online site where all of your, well, that's the repository for where all of your material will take place. So all staff will have reading lists available for you on those sites, and you'll be able to link in straight to the university from the Moodle site to then be able to access the relevant materials. My personal advice would be, I wouldn't go out of your way and buy books at the moment, because the vast majority of texts will be there. It may well be in the first few weeks that you want to have a personalized copy, but I would wait until you start your studies to know what would be most appropriate. The other thing, and I'm not sure if I should say it because publishers might not be too happy, if you go and buy a hardback copy of a textbook, it might be substantially more expensive than getting something online. So it may well be that when you become a student at the university, you then become part of the University of Portsmouth Student Union. There might be further discounts that are available, but also you're going to get better access to some of those online resources. But most importantly, you'll probably get access through the university itself. The next question that's popped up, are there a lot of exams? I'm not quite sure what you want me to answer here. But if I say no, I hope that that might be the right answer. I suppose one of the key things to bear in mind is the variety of assessment strategies. There are exams, but we acknowledge, and because of our work with a whole variety of potential employers, they don't really want to employ students who are really good at exams. They want students who can communicate, people who can get up and present, people who can analyze information, people who can write imaginatively or creatively. So we very much moved away from just being an exam and say essay only type of provider in terms of our courses. There are some exams, as I mentioned earlier, but those exams might range from being online multiple choice, where it's a case of are you kind of learning on the go, so to speak, and that would typically be at level 4, first year. There'll be some exams which might be short answer. There'll be some exams which might include some data analysis. There might be some exams which are more essay based, but they would typically only be half of the module assessment at most. And certainly it's the case that not every module will have an exam. When you get to level 6, the final year, it's likely that you won't have any exams at all, because that's where we want to put that theory, that knowledge that you have into action, into more real world type scenarios. So please don't be too concerned if you are not keen on exams. Yes, there'll be a couple, but they will not be throughout the entirety of your degree course. If I think of sports development and management, I don't think there's one exam on that program, because the whole idea of the course is to provide students with the skill set to be able to look at a whole variety of development management related activities. So yes, there will be exams at times depending upon the course, but that's where I think you need to probably dig around a little bit to try and find out what the requirements will actually be. Good. I'm assuming that you're not a lover of exams, so that's great. The next one is yes, there are normally around about 150 to 170 students on the sport and exercise science course per year. And the other thing just to add in there, I suppose, is that every student, irrespective to what the course is, and we normally would have around about 250 to 280 new students per year across all of our courses, is that every student, as soon as they walk in the door, they will be allocated to a personal tutor. The personal tutors are our academic members of staff. So within the first week, you will be allocated a personal tutor that will be your point of contact, hopefully for the 3 years or maybe 4 years if you do a sandwich year of your course. And you'll meet with your personal tutor in the first year at least every other week. And there'll be pastoral support, there'll be study support, there'll be a whole variety of non-curriculum specific material that will be covered within those tutorial sessions. And of course, there are opportunities for you to meet one-to-one. The other thing is that for a lot of people who might be coming out of school or college, where you might be used to a class of, say, 20, 25, going into a lecture where you might have 250, 300 people can be quite daunting at times. So that tutorial group gives you that little bit of security that you have a safety net, a group of people that you can go and become familiar with in terms of friendship groups, etc., in the first instance. As you move throughout the course, the tutorial support remains, and Obviously, most students, when they then look at doing further courses or moving into graduate employment, they might require some form of reference from their tutor. So we try to keep the tutor with the tutee throughout the duration of studies, so that you can build up a good relationship, and um, the student is able to effectively get across what they're like throughout the duration of time, so that this member of staff can give a good character reference for the individual on any future applications that they have. The next question that's come up: is it possible to voice record lectures? In simple, yes, it's not a problem. And given the way I think that we're operating now, it's highly likely that the vast majority of lectures will also now be recorded, so that students can download as they see fit. One thing that this global pandemic has certainly informed us is that we were able to move all of our teaching and our assessment incredibly quickly online, and students have really been, well, over the moon with it in many respects. I've been as a head of school, the feedback and the work that we've done with the students has been brilliant. And I've got nothing but admiration for our student population in terms of how they've grasped the situation and then responded to it. And one of the things that they have liked is the ability to just access the material as and when it fits them. So we really are now starting to challenge the traditional nature of what degree studies might actually be. And as I mentioned earlier, I think that we're probably going to be moving, and it won't just be Portsmouth, it will be a whole host of institutions who are probably going to move to a scenario where lectures are probably going to be online, which means inevitably they'll be recorded, and they'll be shorter in duration, so almost bite-sized chunks, and it will be the face-to-face small group activities that take place on campus, which means that we can do more of it. And ultimately, that's the bit that students really like: the hands-on experience, the real kind of nitty-gritty of the subject area. So I hope that responds to that one. What's Portsmouth like for a student? Well, I could give a very biased view, but one of the things that we normally would have for open days are a number of students around as either tour guides, but also to give a bit of an insight to what it's like. So if I just give you a very quick insight to student life. So in the first year, there are enough halls of residence for all first year students. So you're literally living right in the middle of the city. For those of you who haven't been to Portsmouth before, there's a beautiful area called Gun Wharf, which is a waterfront area. Lots of bars, restaurants, etc., shopping outlets. And it's brilliant for students for work. And a lot of the employers in the area are acknowledging of the fact that their employers are going to be here one minute, gone the next, because of it's a very student oriented area. So from a work perspective, really good. Like every city, there are places that you would want to be, and there'll be areas that you might not want to go to. And as I said, that'll be every city in the country. But we're very clear on guiding students to where they shouldn't be. There's a lot of safety around, and the good thing is that where the university is situated and where our building is situated, we are literally 5 minutes from an area called Southsea. So that is a 5 minute walk from the seafront. But more importantly, the vast majority of our students will end up moving into more residential areas in their second and third year. So that's a 5 minute, 10 minute walk or cycle from where you're going to need to be. And Southsea is a lovely kind of cosmopolitan area just outside the main area of the city, but it's obviously on the Portsea Island. A lot of our students will also continue to live in the area, even if their work following their studies takes them outside of the area. It's not uncommon for some of them to live on the south coast or live in the Portsmouth region still, but then commute up to London. So again, going back to what I said at the very outset, when you're making your decision about where you might want to go to study, yes, there's finance, there's the location, but also think maybe beyond. Is it somewhere where I might wish to be beyond just my studies? So think longer term, which of course sounds quite difficult because you're only thinking at the moment about where you might wish to go and study, but just be open-minded to the fact that a number of people might stay for a master's course, might stay for work purposes. But Portsmouth, yeah, it's a lovely area, and if you go 10 minutes out of the city, you're into a bit of countryside, and the staffing group, of which we have 35 academics. Some of them live within the city area, some live just outside the city. So a lot of students will end up commuting as well. But Portsmouth as an area, yes, there's good, there's bad, but you are guided towards the areas that you should be in. So a question there about the online. I think this is a question. This question is really prominent and pertinent. There is a lot of uncertainty still in terms of what September, October might look like. It's highly likely that wherever we are in the country, that the vast majority of delivery will probably be online. Now, of course, we're going to be guided by the government in relation to social distancing at present, but we are already starting to plan for what our provision might start to look like. But the university will hopefully have greater clarity within the next 2 weeks to how our delivery plan will start to unfold. So I don't just think it's going to be Portsmouth. I think it's going to be more of a nationwide initiative, and colleagues of mine around the country. And I suppose the best thing about our subject area is we get on very well. We know a lot of people in other institutions. I would say that no one is planning to have September being back to normal. Everyone is thinking there will be some form of online delivery, with the idea being that hopefully we'll be in a position to have some small group teaching on campus with social distancing measures in place. But ultimately, we're going to be directed by the government, and the government will inform education ministers will inform vice chancellors, and the vice chancellor will make the plan for each university. But at the moment, I think it's highly likely that there will be lectures online, but I really hope we'll be able to have small group activities, lab activities, seminar activities on campus. And if that's the case, I then hope that come teaching block 2, which will be January, will be as far back to normal as possible. But again, maybe in a slightly new way of operating, with potentially lectures being online. The main building use of sports management and development. Okay, so we have a building called the Spinnaker building, and that is where our School of Sport, Health and Exercise Science is based. So our building is only used by students within our school. So it's nice to have a dedicated area. It's a sense of identity. So it's very uncommon actually for a school to have its own building, and especially the case in a city-based campus. So yes, the only people who come into our building will be people on our courses. So they're the 4 that I referred to earlier. So sport and exercise science, sports development and management, exercise fitness management, and then sport and exercise psychology. There are occasions where you will need to go off to some other buildings, but the vast majority, if not all, of our small group activity will take place in the Spinnaker building. The only exception to that will be the curriculum areas within strength conditioning and rehabilitation, which is where we've just acquired a new facility, which is 100 meters max from our building. And again, only our students can go in there. So strength conditioning aspects of the curriculum come online at level 5, which is year 2. And we also then have that at year 3. There might be placement opportunities with the athletic union. And then we're just in the process of starting a new master's course in strength conditioning and rehabilitation. So that has required us to have a new facility, which is purposely being put together just for our students. So there are two buildings, but you're the only students who will be going into those two buildings. So hopefully that answers the question there. All of the staff for sports management development, well, in fact, all of the staff across the whole of the school are all together. So we are all situated in the Spinnaker building, and all staff will operate surgery hours for tutorials in addition to their tutorial times with their tutees, to which I referred to earlier. Last question. Don't worry about that. Keep asking them. Is there a lot of support for students with their studies? Yes. Now, the support comes in many different ways, shapes, and forms. If you're able to look on a map, and there are some online videos and talks that we have, we are situated slap bang next door to student services. So that's where all things such as student finance, student support, students who might require additional learning requirements, they'll be able to go and get all of their support and services from that particular building. In terms of other support that students get, now it might be that a number of students arrive to us having had a number of assessments that have taken place. It's highly common for students to experience some form of dyslexia, dyspraxia, etc. And the support services that we have in place are excellent. We have a number of students who have a variety of individualized educational plans that are put in place for them. And as a result of that, that has enabled them to receive specific funding or specific services. And if it's for exams, for example, then they will receive additional time. But further to that, we have the more traditional support, such as drop-in sessions, access to staff. Before any assessments that we have set or any deadlines, there'll be drop-in sessions on each of the modules for students to come and work through what work they're actually doing. Obviously, it's not like college, whereby we don't accept continual draft upon draft upon draft. There are opportunities to get formative feedback within some of those drop-in sessions, but unfortunately, it is a case that once a piece of work is submitted, it's submitted. But there's lots of support opportunities, and I think it's often the case that sometimes the best form of support is also your peer group. So that's why we really do focus on the variety of assessment types, making sure that students feel comfortable. And I suppose the biggest thing just to say there is that we very much pride ourselves on having very clear values as a school, whereby we can all operate where we're looking to enhance to become the very best we possibly can be, but within an environment which recognises equality, dignity, respect, inclusiveness, and also the values that each of us holds as well. And that's something at a student and a staff level. And our students have also contributed to the development of our mission statement, our values, and also our strategic intentions. So our relationship with students is absolutely critical. And even to the point where if we are looking at recruiting new members of staff, students are involved in that recruitment process as well. Because at the end of the day, the staff have got to stand in front of the students and work with students. And if students are telling us, no, this isn't the right person, that's a really important message. So we very much value our student input, and of course it's critical that we provide the support that's required for them. So I think that's that question done. I've run out of questions, I think, for the moment. Is there any kit, tracksuits? Okay, good question. You don't have to purchase it, no. The university does have a kit provider, and this also spans the athletic union, the student union, and also our school, because there might be certain types of kit that you wish to buy. But as soon as you start, we will be providing you with the links to then be able to get that type of equipment if you see appropriate. It's always good that if you're going to be operating in a lab environment, then you have kit which is appropriate. For people on the sports management and development course, you're out in the community quite a bit, maybe working in local schools. It might be that you're engaged in one of the key events that are taking place as part of your course. So we therefore need to make sure that you have the appropriate equipment. So there are some occasions where it will be provided for you, but if you want to buy hoodies, buy polo shirts, etc., then those kind of things, if they're more standardized, we'll be able to provide you with the links to be able to access how to purchase those in the fullness of time. So it's not an immediate thing, it's not an urgent thing, and I wouldn't worry too much about ensuring that you have that prior to starting. Any other questions? Trying to think of other things that might be worth knowing about. What else can we put forward? I suppose another thing that's just worth bearing in mind is employment routes. It's not always the case that you're going to end up working in the sporting industry. And one of the things I'd say is try and think broad. Think about the kind of skills that you acquire. Think about where your knowledge base may be appropriate. And the best example I give there is we do a lot of work with the Ministry of Defence. We do a lot of research work with organisations such as the Energy Institute. So they're organisations who run things such as wind farms or oil rig facilities, where all employees have to do fitness tests. There have to be occupational standards. The RNLI, who obviously employ a whole variety of lifeguards. The kind of skills that we develop on the course are skills that would be highly appropriate for those types of environments as well. So if you think about a lifeguard on a beach, they'll have to be physically fit to be able to swim out, rescue people, but can they identify all of the dangers that are being confronted or presented to them in the water? Now, if you think about a centre in netball, scrum half in rugby, centre midfielder in football, for example, the kind of things that you need to learn how to look at, the visual acuity, the decision-making, anticipation, the visual search patterns, we're very good at trying to understand them within sports contexts, but what about their application in alternative environments? So think about how your skills may be utilised in other professional environments as well. So again, think broad. There's a question there. How much are gym memberships? Now, the gym membership is part of sport and recreation. And from my reckoning, and I would have to confirm this, it's that the membership for sport and rec is around about £120 per student for the year. So very, very good. Now, that might be changing a little bit given the new facility, but I hope that it's not going to be the case. Given that it's a student facility primarily. So gym memberships, very cheap, but further to that, lots of work opportunities there as well. And another thing that's probably worth saying is that Sport and Recreation runs something called Up for Sport, which is where students, and we have a lot from our school, can register for as many coaching qualifications, and you can do it free of charge. And the payback is you going off and coaching in the local community. So it's servicing some of the university strategy within our local area, but it gives you an opportunity to get a double win on your CV, a qualification or qualifications, and a lot of voluntary exposure within the local community as well. The next thing there is around timetables, and will it fluctuate on a weekly basis? Yes. I'm not sure if you managed to hear what I said early on, but the timetables do fluctuate a little bit, and that depends upon, firstly, what course you're on, and secondly, the type of activity that each module will have. So some laboratories, for example, in sport and exercise science might be 2, 3, 4 hours long, depending upon the subject area. and they wouldn't happen every week. They might happen every other week or maybe every third week, depending upon the area. So sometimes it will be up and down. So I think I mentioned earlier, it'll be about 16 to 18 hours on average per week contact. But there'll be some weeks where that might be up a little bit and other weeks where that might be down a little bit. In terms of when you can expect your timetables, the dates haven't been confirmed yet because we haven't got clarity on what next year is going to look like in terms of our ability to be able to return to campus as we would normally do so. If that were to have been the case, you'd get your timetable at the point of having a position confirmed. So that would be around the mid-August period. But that is going to be a little bit up in the air at the moment. We don't have clarity on that. And I'll be surprised if any university in the UK have any clarity on that at the moment as well. I think that might be it in terms of the questions for now. Anything else that people would like to know about? I think we're exhausting. We're exhausting the resource. As I said, I don't know if there are any further questions, but just to re-emphasize something that I said at the very outset, try and make sure you do as much digging around as you can with regards to the institution that you're wanting to go and study at. Try and look at the courses, look at who's going to be educating you, what the employment rates are like, and I suppose get an idea of where students go on to following their graduation. Get an idea of what the facilities are like, the area itself as well. As I said, we're very, very fortunate at Portsmouth in that we have a lovely area. We're blessed with very, very good facilities, and we have excellent staff who are student focused and wanting to enable you to achieve not just the very best you can with your degree, but also to ensure that you have a long lasting relationship with the school. And that's where our successful relationship with our alumni comes from. So it's always nice to know that people who we now see popping up on the TV, or people who are quite influential in the world of sport, health, exercise, physical activity, have come through our system. Any final questions? What jobs have people gone on to once they've finished? That's a good question. So we've had a number of people who have gone into sports marketing. We've had a number of people who have gone into sports law. We've currently got one student who is head of transport for London on the Underground, following a graduate internship, and hence why I mentioned earlier about the variety of skills. So very, very influential job, overseeing the whole of the TfL network. We've currently got one of our individuals is currently head of elite performance for Major League Soccer, having been the head of elite performance at the Premier League. We've got students who are heads of research director positions in the Ministry of Defence. We've got people who have gone into starting up their own companies in strength and conditioning. And in terms of the support, yes, lots of support. And it's not just when you finish the course, it's also throughout. So part of the tutorial program will be about employment development, thinking about entrepreneurial activity, enterprise activity, We're just about to take out an agreement with an organisation called Supporting Champions, which is an online career enhancing package that we will provide to all of our students free of charge. So it's about 40 odd short video clips of people who have gone into work in the broad areas of sport, physical activity and health. So there's lots of opportunities in terms of ongoing development. In terms of going into a master's course, would you have a better chance of getting on at Portsmouth? Well, we have a master's course at the moment, or we have a suite of master's courses for each of our undergraduate courses. So we have one in sports management, one in sport and exercise psychology, one which is performance analysis, and another in clinical exercise science, human and applied physiology. So lots of master's courses which have opportunities for ongoing progression. Now, all universities will say if you stay with them to do their master's course, you'll get a discount. And we're no different. The amount of discount might vary. So a student who stays onto one of our master's courses at the moment will get a 20% discount, but it has to be the right course for you. We're also looking preliminary at what's called a pre-registration physiotherapy course. So if you want to become a physiotherapist, you have to do, or have to be on the Health and Care Professions Council register. So we're looking at the moment to see whether or not we are in a position to provide that. But the problem with physiotherapy courses is that there has to be a sector need for an increased number in physios, and as a result of that, there have to be a certain number of placements that students can go on to within the NHS. But that's something we're looking at very, very strongly, given the fact that around about 15, 20 of our students each year, when they graduate, go on to physiotherapy related courses. And the other one that I mentioned earlier, we have a new master's course in strength conditioning and rehabilitation. So we've tried to match our master's portfolio to where employment opportunities are taking place. Now, that might be employment in terms of applied work, it might be employment in terms of more clinical work, it might be employment in terms of more research-related activities. So a number of people go on to PhDs, etc., as a result of having completed their master's courses. So in terms of would you have a better chance? Well, possibly, but I would say if you get a good degree, and a good degree is classified as being a first class or an upper second class, 2-1, then the chances of you being accepted, irrespective to what institution, should be that much higher, because the threshold for master's courses is normally set as a 2-1. So if you get first class, that shouldn't be a problem at all. There we go. So we're nearly at 4 o'clock. Any final questions? Good question about Erasmus. Erasmus, we haven't got a clue what's going on with that at the moment because of the Brexit negotiations, although we do have a number of Erasmus partnerships which are still able to go on at present, and they're both at a student and a staff level. But we also have a very wide-ranging study abroad suite of opportunities, and the this fits in with what we call our sandwich year option, where after the second year of study, students can then go and study abroad. We have 5 or 6 areas at the moment. Edith Cowan University in Western Australia. We have Manipal in India. We have Brock and Western Ontario in Canada, where we've either had students or we've got students, or students are hopefully going out next year. And we also have students from those institutions coming to us as well. But it's a study abroad experience where you can go over and obviously learn what it's like to study elsewhere. And that's a very, very big tick in the box for a number of employers, because it evidences that students have had a bit of get up and go to experience something different. Those opportunities are pretty much across all of our courses as well. So lots of study abroad for that, but also with regards to work placements, they can be abroad, but they can also be at home or within the EU. So as long as they are appropriate to the level of study, then that's fine. And the placements can be either via a sandwich year option, or they can be as part of the course where they might be what we call a 20 credit block. So at the level 6, which is the third year, that might look more like a 20 credit professional development module. And again, that is available across all of our courses at the moment. So yes, it's the whole idea of careers is something that we try to develop within our course content, within the modules, but also by having specific modules such as professional development, and then also things such as the sandwich year, which can either be a placement or a study abroad, and also via our tutorial process as well. Okay, anything else, or do we leave it there as it's now 4 o'clock? Better chance of getting no, no, you don't. No, the study abroad is something that students, when they get to the start of their second year, there will be a number of drop-in sessions that the one of our members of staff, who is one of my associate heads, who oversees all of our educational partnerships and global engagements, they will start to deliver a variety of drop-in sessions to provide students with information about the opportunities available. And from there, that then starts to almost become the process where students find out more information about where they'd like to go, or maybe what they would prefer not to do. But it's not about particular percentages. If you complete the level 5 successfully, you are then entitled to go on to that placement year or that sandwich year. So hopefully that helps that particular answer there. Well, I hope that the session has been of interest and also of use. And uh, can we email if any more questions? Yes, of course, absolutely not a problem at all. And what I'd say is go onto the school webpage, and all information about the courses, about our activities, about our staff is available. Please do ask questions. Have a look on Twitter as well, at the School of Sport, Health and Exercise Science. But if you do have further questions, then they can either come to me and I can forward it out to relevant staff. The other person who might be appropriate to be in touch with is someone called Jenny Burbage, who is one of my senior team, and she oversees all of the recruitment and admission processes. So if you do have any questions with regards to the admissions process, and maybe then about finances, housing, etc., then she'd be an excellent person to contact in the first instance. But of course, there is also a whole load of other information available on the website which can help as well. There you go. I think Josh has put on the Twitter site there, which has got lots of information on it. Okay, that might bring us to a close. Okay, if there's no other questions, then thank you very much indeed for joining today, and I wish you a very successful summer period, and I obviously hope that you all stay safe and well. And I hope to look forward to welcoming you to the University of Portsmouth in due course. Okay, folks. Thanks very much indeed. Bye bye.